So first question comes in from Anonymous here. It says, I'm really worried about my mental health and feel constantly anxious because I'm not meeting the expectations of my clients. No matter what I do, it doesn't seem like I'm doing enough, and I get so worked up sometimes I feel physically sick. I've worked so hard to become a conveyancer, but it's all getting too much. I'm at the point where I'm ready to jack in my career and walk away because I've had enough. Please help me. Okay, that's a fairly intense question, whoever submitted that, and I'm really sorry that you're in that place. I want to share with you that I know what that's actually like to be in that position, and a lot of people don't actually know my personal story. So perhaps if I share a little bit about the journey that I've been on over the course of the last sort of, I don't know, maybe 10 years or more, that might sort of help to reflect on this, because it is a thing that I'm seeing a lot more of now, not necessarily in the profession of estate agency and conveyancing and all that sort of thing, but actually in the wider field of social circles, of speaking to friends and all the rest of it. And I really get that this is a major problem, and I believe this week is Mental Health Week, or certainly people are raising exposure about that. So let me share with you my story, guys, because this might help in some respects. And I'm not saying I've got all the answers here, but I've certainly gone through the mill and I understand what it feels like, and so I can really relate to what you're saying. So I want to go back to probably 2000 and maybe 11, maybe 12, that sort of time. And at the time I was actually going out and I was speaking, doing a lot of speaking engagements, and I was speaking on behalf of some fairly big players in the world as far as property investing is concerned. Martin Roberts, Homes Under the Hammer, Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad fame, and Robbie Fowler, the footballer. And I was sort of traveling the country. I was doing a lot of mentoring. I was sort of taking people by the hand and taking them into their particular investment areas, and we were doing a lot of work there. I was also speaking a lot of weekends where I'd go down to London and we'd be put up in a fabulous 4-star hotel, and you'd have an audience of anywhere between 20 and 100 people. And I'd sit there and sort of share pearls of wisdom about property investing and what I was learning and how to get started, and the sort of basic fundamentals that a lot of people overlook. And anyway, the point of me telling you all of this is that at the time I was working really hard. I built my property portfolio and I was continuing to build it. And as I say, I was incredibly busy. And I'd always been one of these people that kind of works really, really hard because that's all I know, right? It's what it was taught to me by my family, and I just worked flat out. That's all I knew how to do. So it was kind of, I remember at one point things were so bad. I was coming back, and I think it was like on a Wednesday night, I'd arrive home and I'd sleep Wednesday night at home, and then sort of Thursday afternoon I'd travel back down to London and start speaking again for the weekend. And I thought, why on earth did I start doing all of this investing and building this property portfolio when actually I just wanted more time freedom and I just wanted more time out, you know? And so I got to a point where beginning of 2015, the cracks started to show. And on the surface, you know, anybody looking into my life at that time would have said, you know, Silas, you've kind of got it all. You know, you've got a property portfolio. I think at that time I was earning something like 6 figures a year from a property portfolio that was coming in as sort of passive income, as they call it. I was doing very well on the sort of speaking circuit. I was, in some weekends, I'd make 5 to 10 grand a weekend for 3 days work. And I'm not saying this to brag or boast. I'm just sharing with you where I was at that point in my life. But underneath all of that, what was actually going on, and I feel a little bit exposed sort of sharing this really, but what was going on underneath all of that was I was standing at the front of the room and I was sharing all of this knowledge and information, and I was what was going on for me was that I had this internal dialogue, and the internal dialogue was I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, I'm a failure. Okay, those were the 3 voices that went round and round and round, and they got louder and louder and louder. And I thought, you know, who am I to be doing all of this stuff? You know, it became really debilitating, you know, and it was sort of dragging me down until, as I say, beginning of 2015, I was in a hole. And I remember saying to the guys who I was working with at that time, you know, I need some time out. I'm making mistakes at home, and I was making these really daft mistakes that I don't normally make. And I said to them, I need to take some time out here because this is this is just too much. And I just went to bed, and I found myself literally what I thought was going to be asleep for a couple of days. Turned into basically 3 months being bedridden. And I kid you not, I was living off Domino's pizza and pints of Guinness. And I woke up the one day and I took the empties to the recycling bin. And I think I drank something like 8 or 10 pints of Guinness the night before. And this was on a Wednesday. And I'm thinking, do you know what? There's a problem here. And that was kind of what really woke me up. And before that point, I'll be quite frank with you, I'd always believe when people say, oh, I'm depressed, I just used to think, oh, come on, just get on with it, pull yourself out of it. And this is the advice that a lot of people give that when they just don't know any better, right? And so from my side, what actually happened was I ended up in a position where I just became totally overwhelmed by all of these emotions, all of these negative thoughts that were going around in my head. And I just ended up completely sick, to the point where I couldn't go out. I was completely anxious. I was, as I say, my diet was all over the place. And I rang this friend after I took these empties to the bin. And I just thought, you know what? I'll pick up the phone and I'll call a friend. And she was somebody who had unfortunately battled with some mental health issues for a long time. And I just said, look, this is what's going on for me. I'm really concerned. And she turned around and she said, yeah, you need some help and support. And she actually put me in touch with somebody who suggested that I go for what's called CBT. It was called cognitive behavioral therapy, I think it was called. And so I went and did that. And it was really interesting to see this therapist sort of sit there and you kind of pull your heart and soul out and you go, do you know what? I'm not in a good place. And she, over, I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks, she mapped out on a piece of paper everything that was kind of going on in my head and where all these thoughts had come from and what was going on. And it kind of related a lot to, I suppose, trying to please my father and all that sort of thing that was happening at the time. But when I saw everything mapped out on this piece of paper, I was just like, okay, right. So what do I need to do to kind of cure that, And for me, I was not one of these people who likes to go on pills. I don't believe in that necessarily. So for me, I was one of these people that just thought, there's got to be a better way of doing things. And that's how I kind of went down the road of doing a lot of research, doing a lot of checking. And I did, an awful lot of reading online and sort of finding out what is it that kind of triggers depression or what is it that triggers this anxiety. And unfortunately, there's been a huge shift recently where I'd say man, but it's actually man or woman, if you like, that have actually we've detached ourselves from our natural environment. Okay, so we've built houses and we've built blocks of flats, and we're now living in completely artificial environments. And unfortunately, not only is our environment artificial, but also, a lot of our food is artificial. So a lot of the things that we're putting into our body, caffeine in particular, alcohol in particular, these can be really bad things that help to drive a nervous system or put a nervous system on overdrive. And I learned, and again, I'm not giving any sort of medical advice here, so please don't get me wrong, I'm just sharing my experience. But what has gone on for a lot of people is that we've become drawn into this social media. We've got into this artificial environment, and then we've got this comparison thing going on where we're looking around at us and we're looking at all the people that are on social media and they're living their best life. Okay. And unfortunately, we make comparisons of that. And then we get the dopamine receptors get fried because we're constantly looking at screens. So we look at our phones every day. We look at our laptops or our computers at work. We go home. We've got the biggest TVs we've ever had in our lives. And it's just too much sensory overload all the time. And that kind of stimulates more of our nervous system, makes us more anxious, more fed up. And unfortunately, what I found was that you have to take a step back in a lot of ways. And it was daft things like I read a report online about things like energy efficient light bulbs, for example. And we're told, oh, you've got to have your energy efficient light bulb, save your money and all this, that, and the other. And then you read this report and it suggests that, this was a credible report written by scientists who have tested these sorts of things. 100% of all energy efficient light bulbs that they tested at that point actually triggered anxiety because the coatings on the bulbs were not effective enough. And of course, you've got one of these burning for 6 to 8 hours every day in your environment, and it can have an impact on the human body. And we think we're immune to it, and then we plug in things like Wi-Fi and 5G and all this sort of stuff. And again, I don't want to sound like a tin foil hat conspiracy theorist, but there's all this sort of stuff that's going on, and we forget that 100 years ago, none of this existed. We live very simple lives. We didn't have emotional overload. We've gone from what I call the age of information through to now the age of distraction, where the average person now consumes more information in a day than we would have done in probably our entire lifetimes, a couple of hundred years ago. So I think the point of me telling you all of this is that if you're in this position where you're nervous, you're anxious, you're full of depression and all the rest of it, then you kind of got to step back from your environment. And first thing I would do is I would put my phone in what's called grayscale mode. You can turn off the colors so that it just becomes like a black and white or gray screen. That can be really helpful to stop the overload. Try and reduce your screen time massively. Obviously get some professional support and help. I thoroughly recommend CBT. As I say, I'm not a fan of pills myself. I'm not saying they don't have a place. I'm sure, if things are really, really bad for you, it might be something to think about initially, but I don't think it's a long-term solution. And I really don't think, this is my personal view, I really don't think that depression and that sort of thing is caused by a chemical imbalance. That's not what I believe at all. And in fact, I think I read an article that suggested that, is it Prozac, I think, is the number one selling depression medication in the world,
which is only 3% to 5% more effective or efficient than a placebo.
Sorry, guys, just had a slight interruption there. But I think, as I say, not really a fan of those pills and potions, not saying they don't have a place. But I think from a point of view of moving forward, it's getting that support and that kind of therapy, if you like, from CBT specialists or somebody of that nature who can help you, sort of diagnose these problems and get to the root cause. And again, look at pulling back in terms of the work environment that you're in. I'm not saying quit your profession. I know it feels sometimes it can be really overwhelming, but actually take a balanced view on, are you putting too much time, effort, and resources into your work and not enough actually into your own health? And so I'd look to switch up my diet. I'd go more towards the organic food and sort of stop eating out. Again, things like seed oils apparently are highly inflammatory to the body, and a lot of depression and anxiety can be triggered through inflammation. This is just stuff that I've read that I'm sharing with you that makes sense to me. As I say, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it certainly makes sense when we consider that we're all eating a lot of fried foods and that sort of thing, which can have a really negative impact on a sort of internal environment. So I think that's what I would do initially. What I can say is that over time, what you're going through right now could be the very best thing that happens to you. And one of the things that I learned for me was that was really the start of what I call a spiritual awakening. And it's when I wrote a book called Love is the New Religion, because I had a very sort of profound spiritual awakening experience. And that was about 3 years later, I think it was in 2018. And it just sort of blew my mind. We kind of also in society moved away from God, if you like. And I don't know whether you're, agnostic or whether you do have a religious belief or what have you. But the issue for a lot of people, I think, is that we've lost that kind of spiritual connection. And as a consequence, because we've moved away from that, a lot of us find that we struggle with our meaning in life. Why are we here? What are we doing? Are we just made to go to work and work our backsides off so that we can pay bills and then die? Is that really what we're here for? Or is there a bigger question that needs to be answered off the back of that? And I believe that is absolutely true. I do believe we're all here to deliver our unique sort of gift to the world, if you like. I don't quite know what that is for each and every one of us, and for some of us we're still searching for it many years later, but I do believe it can be one of the very best things that can happen to you. And I don't just take that lightly. It's something that's happened to me, as I feel I'm very grateful for going through that experience. And I know a lot of my friends who have also had the benefit of going through it certainly believe that it's helped them in terms of their wider picture in life. So I hope that helps, Anonymous. I know it can be a really tough position to go through. As I say, I've been there. That tunnel can be dark when you're in it. It's so difficult when you're in it for people to relate to you, particularly friends and family, because they just see you as, particularly if you're in that depression state, they can't relate, so they just want you to get out of bed, or they just want you to cheer up, or they just want you to go out and socialize and all the rest of it. And actually, it can be really, really difficult. And I think the only way out of that is through it, unfortunately. And if you can face up to it and square up to it, then you will naturally grow and progress through that. And if it helps to have another conversation about this, or anybody watching this and they want to have a private conversation one-on-one, I'm happy to share, all of what I've learned as a result of this journey. As I say, it can be dark, it can be terrifying, it can be really upsetting when you're in it. But I do believe there's a reason for it, and I do believe it's happening more and more, that people are sort of waking up as to what is the purpose of our life, why are we here, what are we doing, and that's really what is causing people to sort of feel this anxiety and depression. Because they realize there's a little bit more to life, or that their soul, if you like, realizes there's a bit more to life, and they want to grow through that, but they don't know how, and that's what keeps them stuck. So, very long-winded answer. I hope sharing my journey has helped. As I say, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you one-on-one, or anybody else that's sort of watching this that has struggled with the same things. I've been more than delighted to do that. So, yeah, just get in touch with me and let me know. But certainly, I hope that's helped and has given you a certain few pointers along the way. So, thanks ever so much for the question there. Anything else that you need in terms of any questions answered, or any kind of support that you need with any property deals that you've got going on, or anything like that, please do reach out. Please get in contact with us. Happy to help at WiggyWam.co.uk, with a Twitter handle as well, which is at WiggyWam_UK. And we'd love to have those questions come in. You can also go to our WiggyWam website, which is wiggywam.co.uk, and you can set yourself up a free profile in there. You can have a roam around. You can get access to our learning center, where we share a lot of invaluable information in there for you, which I'm really excited about. So, yeah, we're trying our best to give as much knowledge, education, resources as we possibly can to people to really help them on their journey, because I know what it can be like. It can be a nightmare trying to buy a property or sell a property or all the rest of it. And we just want to help and support as many people as possible. We also want to align ourselves with those estate agents and those solicitors that are delivering excellence to their clients on a daily basis. Okay. And we've got some really cool things lined up to help them as much as possible, to help them get more clients and to help them make a more profitable service available to their clients as well. So lots going on behind the scenes, guys. Really excited about it. Thank you again for joining me today, and look forward to seeing you again on another webinar. Any more help and support that you need, then please reach out and let me know. All right, guys, amazing webinar. Thank you so much indeed for your time, and I will look forward to seeing you very soon. Take care.